Security. So I've got a lot of experience in that area, and so I guess that's why the ranking member really wanted me to be on that. And then on the other side, transportation and infrastructure.
Hmm.
There, obviously our highways and our public transportation, and how we get our goods and services and people and how we transport them around is a huge issue. But also in that particular transportation infrastructure, there are ways that I can also help the Everglades, and so that was a very big win for me to get transportation infrastructure. A lot of the freshman class wanted to be on that committee, and I think only 4 or 5 freshmen got on it. And again, I was very lucky to be one of the ones chosen for it. And then my second one was, look, my first. You always put what you eventually want to get to, and the number one committee. They have A committees, and then they have A B pluses and stuff like that. And we were told that no freshman was going to get an A committee. But the A committee that I'm really looking forward to joining one day is Commerce and Energy.
Okay.
And that's a really big committee, and a lot of policies that help the economy, and then our stance energy wise in the world. And so that's the committee I put as number one, because now they know that, hey, eventually I want to get there. But my second one was called T&I, Transportation Infrastructure. My third one was Homeland Security. So I really got the two that I really wanted, that I could get. Then I also asked for Foreign Affairs, and then I asked for Science, Technology, and Space, because that for me would have been a fun one, because I really like the space program. I like science. I like the technology aspect. I don't think I got it. So, I mean, but since I got the two top choices, I'm not going to be greedy about it. So, no, it's also good for South Florida that I got those particular committees. And so, I'm really grateful to leadership to put me on there. And I don't know how many other in my class actually got to get their first and second pick. So
Right.
it was really good. It was a good day for me yesterday. Yeah.
Have you talked about WHIP?
We're just starting that. Go ahead.
What is the WHIP?
It's a whip.
Explain to listeners, because one thing I want to make clear is that we have, especially in our community, and you know this very well, but for those who are listening in, is that we have a lot of folks who come here from a different country. They become citizens, become residents, become citizens, and they don't understand how the inner workings of our government. And when you say assistant whip, I can almost guarantee you about 60% of the folks down where I live are like, what does that mean? Can you help define that as a freshman and what that means for you in our community?
Our particular whip is Steve Scalise from Louisiana. He's and when you look at the hierarchy of folks in the Republican caucus, you have the leader, Kevin McCarthy. Then you have the whip, Steve Scalise, and then you have Liz Cheney, who's the conference chair. So that's the leadership. And so the job of the whip is driving the Republican agenda and making sure that our conference is pretty much united in the direction that we want to go. If there are bills that are really important to the conference, to our agenda, then basically, I guess you whip people.
You whip them into shape.
Right. And so you don't actually do that, but I guess it's a really old term. And so as I guess an assistant whip, we have about 20, 30 assistant whips that help the whip. Steve, we have a meeting, and then we'll say, okay, this is the agenda for this week, and this is how the votes should be lining up, and you're given about 4 or 5 different members of Congress to talk to say, hey, this is the reason why we want to move in that direction. Obviously congressmen and women have the right to choose, do, and vote however they want, and it's rare that you're going to end up 100%, but that's what the job of the whip and the assistant whips are, try to get everybody moving in the same direction, at least.
Herding cats.
Exactly.
Herding cats.
It's like the mayor of Dade County.
Yeah, right. Kind of like, I mean,
you had the veto power, but you wanted it to be as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And as mayor of Miami-Dade, I usually had a working coalition, and didn't necessarily have to be the same 7, 8, 9 people for each vote. I mean, some would go off, no, I can't do that, but then you'd pick up somebody else. And so, it's very similar to that. and trying to line up the agenda and the things that we wanted to do and why we wanted to do that. And so it's pretty similar to what I did as mayor of Miami-Dade County. So again, that's a privilege. I think 4 or 5 freshmen were assigned as assistant whips and all that. So I was really fortunate to be assigned to that, and hopefully it leads to bigger and better things in the future, maybe some chairmanships, et cetera. So but with that, you need seniority. You need to stay there in order to get.
How many freshmen are there?
Oh, we had a big class. There's about 50 freshmen total. The majority of them were Republican. They're Democrat freshmen, but they have their own caucus, obviously. But I'd say we had 30, 40 Republican freshmen. All of the toss-up seats around the country that were supposed to be toss-ups were won by the Republicans. And we also picked up, mine actually, it was leaning Democrat. And so I was an upset. Maria Salazar, that was an upset too. That was likely Democrat. And so even though, we lost the presidency, and we just lost control of the Senate, actually it's 50-50, but the tiebreaker goes to the vice president. We gained about 12, 13 seats in the House. And so the majority that the Democrats have right now in the House is something like 11 seats, which in reality means it's only about 5. Because if you flip 5 or 6 people, that's it. It just flips the other way. And so we're at around 212, 213, and in order to get majority, you need 218. And so,
that's
we'll
when
see
you
what
have to
happens.
kind of come across the line and maybe sell some of these other folks on an idea that is really best for the community. And, one thing that, Grant and I see all the time, especially when you're working in chambers, and I was telling the congressman when COVID-19 hit, one of the blessings in disguise, one of the silver linings is how all of these chambers in Miami-Dade County came together very quickly. And we were actually calling once a week one another. And we had never done that before, but we had to for the sake of our community, for the sake of our businesses, for the sake of our families and the economic impact that COVID-19 was having. And we still now, it was almost a year later, next month will be, March. I remember March 16th, closing everything down because I was eating dinner, celebrating my birthday with my husband. So I said, I want this birthday to be a little bit better than last one, but is that collaborative effort. And I think we can get so much more done when we do set aside personal agendas and we do set aside, like, this is really, really important to me, is knowing what's important to your community. And better than anybody, being former mayor of Miami-Dade County, how it's so important to represent those people, representing your community, and even having your own personal agenda. What is the absolute best thing to do? And I can tell you right now, just it was a rough and rocky road this last year in all areas, whether it's politics, business. It was just it's been a rough ride, and I can guarantee you that the community is looking for those folks, those leaders who are willing to work together, kind of put aside political differences, whatever differences, every difference, and say, what is the best thing to do for our community? And we thank you that when you go back up to DC, you've already demonstrated that's something that's extremely important to you already. And that's just going to be a policy. And I think it's part of what, helped you to win, to be very honest with you, is maybe you got some votes that you would have normally gotten, because whether being Democrat or Republican, and just demonstrating that we have to work together. I know that from stateside, Holly Roshine had a great reputation of just,
she did.
She was great.
She was
great all the time that she was there, and she things got done.
Yes.
And that's what's really important. And if there's ever an epic era that we live in right now, is we need to see things get done. And you talked about transportation infrastructure, and as you know, on a local level, we fought for a long time to get rapid transit all the way down to South Dade.
Yes.
And, BRT was approved. And talk to us a little bit about, there's a lot of people out there, again, who don't understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I am wrong a lot. Is that
rarely wrong?
I pay him to say those nice things about me. My understanding was one of the reasons why there is a strong push for BRT in particular. A, it's very efficient. B, we can get this system up and running in a couple of years.
Yes.
And C, we had to get ridership we had to demonstrate, and again, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have a certain measure of ridership on a consistent basis
Mm-hmm.
before that we could get federal funding.
That's correct.
Am I correct? Am I correct in saying
Yeah,
that?
Right.
So that's why
mm-hmm.
BRT first,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have that whole corridor,
right?
And then you get the ridership up, get it to where we need to go, and then we go to rail.
Yes.
Am I correct in saying that?
Yes. And
Okay.
so in order to get federal funding, there are different kinds of programs. There is a New Start, okay? There's a Small Start, and then there are New Starts, okay? A Small Start is something that is less than, the project is $300 million or less total.
Mm-hmm.
And a New Start can be anything. It could be billions of dollars, okay? All right, but the processes are different. And also the scope of the project is obviously different. And so with the Small Start, which is the BRT is a Small Start.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to, and I was the mayor of Miami-Dade County. I pushed for that. All right. And because frankly, a rail system is not going to get the grade from the federal government that will allow the federal government to participate because you don't have the ridership.
Right.
All right. And so, you're going to go through this whole litany of things that you have to go through. You have to do environmental impact. You have to do all kinds of stuff. And then the federal government starts giving you grades. All right. And if you don't have a medium or higher grade, you're not going to get funded.
Right.
All right. And so it was going to be extremely difficult to justify over $1 billion, a rail system at grade going to South Dade was going to cost at least $1.3 billion. All right. That is not a small start.
No.
All right. You'd have to jump through all those hoops.
Mm-hmm.
You would probably never demonstrate the ridership that would give you a medium grade, which means you would not get federal funding.
There you go.
All right. So what we told, everybody was, look, Miami-Dade County probably had the money to do $1.3 billion, but that was it. We do that quarter and that was it. It's over. Okay. We didn't have any more money for anything else. And that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked at, hey, can we give a gold standard BRT? And people are saying, well, that's a bus. And then it's but when this system actually starts to run, it'll run like a train. It will be electric like a train. You'll have stations like a train. It'll be prepaid like a train. And your stations will have platforms and everything. Everything looked like a train, except it's not. It's actually some kind of a wheeled vehicle. All right. And the good thing about that system is you're going to invest $300 million. $100 million is coming from the federal government, another $100 million coming from the state, and then $100 coming from Miami-Dade. You'll get this up and running in about 2 years, whereas a rail system, it'll take you about 10 years to get. Okay.
And by that time, it's going to be outdated.
Exactly.
Well,
right.
And by that time, is it safe to assume that what we started at 1.3 billion 10 years
it's
later?
It's going to be.
Who knows what the actual cost is going to be?
It's never it's never what they tell you it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It never is. And so you'll have the system up and running in a couple of years. You'll have stations. And then if the people like it and start using it and the ridership numbers start to go up, there's always the possibility that you could say, okay, now because these stations are going to be built with platforms, and all you have to do, okay, now we're going to use the stations and we're going to put trains on them, and you can in the future when you get a better grading from the federal government. If you say stop now, that means you're going to give back $100 million because that $100 million is not going to stay.
If we don't use
you're
it
going
for
to
what
give
we
back
want
$100 million. Okay, you're going to give back another $100 million back to the state. You're going to give $100 million to the feds. That's $200 million. Miami-Dade County still have its $100 million. And now you're going to start basically from scratch on a system that it's going to take you through all of the different processes that you have to go through. You won't have a system for at least 10 years.
We need it yesterday.
Right.
Let me just, I come from the South. I'm up here.
Well, we are in the South for most of Dade County.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
The most
She's the
important part
deep South. The deep South.
Deep South.
Yeah.
The
Northern
right?
Keys, as we call it.
Yeah.
Northern Cuba is where we're. Anyway,
Okay.
long story. We won't go there right now. Is even with COVID, even with still a lot of people working from home, even with schools not being, a lot of them are still out. It's all it's all over the map, which is where it needs to be. Unfortunately, right now we're working with that day in and day out. There's that traffic that I am still hitting that, and I don't know how bad it's going to be, every day it's a little bit different.
Right.
I just know it's going to be bad. We see the traffic already increasing. We know that in about a year from now, at the most 2, those folks who have chosen to work from home and things like that, they're going to start looking, they're going to grow, and they're going to start looking for office space and things like that. And they're going to start coming back into retail, back into these office spaces. And so we're going to start having more people commuting again, is what's going to happen. I was talking to someone from the GMCVB not too long ago, and they do traffic studies, and they said in the downtown area, it's almost back to quote unquote normal for all of that. The reason why we need, in my opinion, it's just an opinion, and I will tell you that most of our members share this opinion, who are business owners. We need something sooner than later.
Right.
We need it to be efficient.
Mm-hmm.
We need it to be affordable. We need to be able to demonstrating to these growing businesses that we can live, work, and play in Deep South Dade. But if you have the choice and you want to live down here, but you still want to commute and live up in and work up in Miami, we're offering you an alternative.
Right.
Very efficient. You can be working on your laptop and all that kind of stuff. You're not wasting time just sitting in traffic. And here's, from my point of view, one of the beauties of Miami South Dade, Deep South Dade, is it still has that sense of community, that home feeling. Last week I left here and I had my windows down, gorgeous day, and I had to call my office and I had it on speakerphone. And the rail went over me. I was right there. And it dawned on me how loud it is.
Super loud.
It's super loud.
Yeah, it
and I was like, wait, hang on a minute. I had to close the windows and all this stuff. Yeah,
commercial.
This is really important.
Cuban
Commercial
coffee?
break.
Cuban
Of
coffee?
course, we have to have Cuban coffee.
Served by a Republican.
Oh,
Yeah. So, and I was this should not be a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is an economic issue.
Right.
This is an issue for the quality of life in our community. And how can we improve that sooner than later?
Thank you.
Secondly, we've talked about this on numerous occasions as well. There was a season where my husband and I, our family, lived in Bogota. And we lived there when there was no Transmilenio. And I don't know if you've ever driven in Bogota. It's almost impossible. It was impossible back then. We came back a couple years later, came back with my husband. Thank you so much. This is awesome. So I'm going to be talking faster than ever before after this. But so they had the Transmilenio, which is BRT.
Yes.
There, and I get on it and I was talking about, oh my gosh, it was amazing how the traffic was so much better, so much more manageable, that kind of stuff. Again, you're still offering options. And one of the things that's going to happen when you offer these options, it's going to offer an option for growth. Okay. But now we can offer these options. Again, and I kept on referring to it as this is so quiet. This is real. And my husband had to keep on reminding me, we're on a bus. We're on a bus. Because it opens up like a train.
Exactly.
It feels like a train. You're on a platform like a train.
Exactly.
It was amazing. And they had it up and running in like 2.5 years.
Correct.
And this was over in Colombia when still, the drug cartels were still there. And they got this thing. And it's like, if that can happen over there under all those situations, I do believe that we can make this thing work here, always keeping in mind when that growth comes, there's another option. There's another option.
But listen, you didn't know that you weren't on a train.
I did not know that I was not on a train.
And so what I believe is going to happen is the system's going to be built. All right. And people are, right now, everybody has this thing. It's a bus, right? And then you have in your mind that somehow your experience is going to be just like a bus, but it's not. It's more like a train. And once they see it, and once they get on it, and then they'll say, "Oh, now I get it." Okay,
exactly.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have, we're gonna have to build it, right? And then people say, "Oh, now I understand what he's talking about." Look, one of the proponents of this was actually the Commissioner Eileen Higgins. Why? Because she lived in Mexico City, and she took their BRT system every day. And she thought it was fabulous. And so she said, she had the same framework of mine that I had. And that, hey, if you build it and they can see it, then they'll understand why, it's much cheaper. It's much faster to get up and running. It's very efficient. It's going to be just as fast, and it's going to be quieter, actually, because the train, even though it's electric, It's very noisy, very noisy. These buses you won't even be able to hear because you're going to be electric. So
Okay,
You know,
I got some things to go over.
Yeah.
You're pretty unique. How many Congress people are there in the country?
435.
Okay, of the 435, how many have a district that's in between two national parks and
Not
has
many.
a military base?
Well, I have two military bases
What's the other one?
down in the
Keys,
Yeah.
right? You have two military bases between two national parks. You have the number one economic engine in Dade County. It's pretty rare across the country.
No, and you know and it's a big district in terms of its size, all right. And then the diversity of it. It's got very urbanized areas, and then you have the Keys, and then you have these beautiful parks, and then you have agriculture. The only thing I don't have is you have the ocean, and you have and the only thing we don't have is mountains. Okay, so I got to build one somewhere.
we have Mount Trashmore.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Can we do something about that?
When we
Yeah,
were,
but that's not in my district.
know.
That's
when
in
we
your
when we
district,
were growing up, the military base was very busy.
Yeah.
So there were jobs down there. Now it's not a military base; it's a reserve base, and there's push through the federal government, hopefully, to open up a little of the base to get not commercial, but maybe cargo in there and some more things like Opelika Airport.
No, I don't think that the cargo thing is really gonna happen. There's a lot of resistance in that area to have commercial kind of flights, but there is an FBO going to be there, which is for certain I guess general aviation aircraft to go in, okay, but not a cargo operation. But what we want to do is actually enhance the military operations that are going down there. There is a push to have the Florida National Guard have a bigger presence down there.
That means people. That means housing.
Exactly.
It means economic impact
So
as well.
We're not going to. There's a lot of questions. We're going to ask a few. Kerry, can you read it right here?
Ask him if there is a plan to expand the road in the Florida City and Homestead area before there's even more growth in the area. And I think we just kind of talked about that. The resolution is the BRT.
Yes.
Correct?
Right.
Yes.
But the one of the things that we did before I left as mayor of Miami-Dade County is right now the county is in the midst of changing all of the traffic signals to intelligent, adaptive signals, and so we saw a huge increase in efficiency on US 1 where we put it in, where we saved probably 15 minutes each way. When you think about it, that's half an hour a day, all right? 2.5 hours a week. You multiply that times 52, that's a lot of hours that we're saving. And so once we get the entire system up and running, and it'll take about a couple more years to get it all up and running, then all of the traffic signals will be interconnected. All the traffic signals will be adaptive, which means that it's intelligent, so that it knows that, hey, I got there's a backup here. I got to give more time to this particular flow than the other flow. And we will achieve, the optimum efficiency of our roadways. Will there be plans to widen roads, et cetera? Yeah, that's always, in the pipeline. That's done by the Florida Department of Transportation and Miami-Dade County, depending on the road. So yes, and then for us, it's how much money will the federal government give to the states for road improvements, et cetera. Usually on the federal highway system, the big expressways and all that. So I expect to learn a lot more about the process, and I expect also to be able to help the people of District, not only 26, I mean all of Miami-Dade, because I'm still a Miami-Dade, now Monroe County guy at heart, okay? And it doesn't have to be my district. What's good for the entire area is good for the people that live in my district, because people who live in my district just don't stay in my district.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
Next question.
Okay. Urban sprawl actually lowers the average length of life. Traffic affects the health of people and contributes to higher blood pressure issues. And may I
Sure.
say something? They're absolutely true. And what we are seeing, especially down in the South Dade area, is the frustration of waiting at a traffic light it is frustrating. You're sitting and there's nothing coming the opposite way. And so people get frustrated and they're plowing through these red lights And then that's what happens is someone gets hit, someone gets hurt, and I think there's just the traffic lights, those smart lights that we're going to be getting in will make a big difference. It does take time. We have just a few intersections in all of Miami-Dade County, and even going down into the Florida Keys. I did that last week.
Right.
And it was amazing that the turnpike gets backed up right as it dumps out into US 1. Yeah. Mind you, the flip side of that, this is where I got educated in all of this, is that, there was a proposed flyover of all of Florida City. This was FDOT, to go right over Florida City and dump right into the 17-mile stretch. And that would have been devastating to the businesses.
That's a downside, because all the businesses that actually want that flow right in front of their business.
Exactly. Right. And who, we have Chick-fil-A coming down there. We have Wawa coming down there. We have other businesses coming down there who are, dependent upon this traffic. Mind you, there is room for it to flow better. Yes. There is.
Right.
But to completely alleviate that flow is not in the best interest overall. And again, it's coming back to the drawing board. We appreciate the engineers that they resolved the traffic flow, but at the same, they created a whole nother, economic disaster, which we can't afford. Again, this is where the community, and we had charrettes and things like that. And I encourage people, when you find out about these, we're always encouraging our folks, get engaged. Go to some town meetings, go to a council meeting, every once in a while. Listen to what those people that you voted into office or you didn't vote into office, what they're really fighting for or against, and make sure that your voice is continually heard, not just at the polls. This is where this is why we did the Meet Your Candidate. This is how all this started, was Meet Your Candidate.
Right.
Was encouraging constituents in the South Dade area. It does have relatively low voter turnout. Is if you don't continually have your voice heard, you guys don't know what's important, and you're just kind of in the dark. I'm pretty sure this is what, our folks want, but if we're constantly calling you or attending these meetings, giving you feedback, and if I should say something here as well, because I'm in a position and you are too as well, like every politician is also a human being.
Oh, absolutely.
Really? You are? Okay.
Everyone knows who's close to me. I don't care for politics, but I love every politician because they are human beings. And they do, they're most of them, whether we agree with them or not, they are doing the best that they know how. And they'll know better if we as constituents stay engaged with what they're fighting for or against. I really think they'll do a better job instead of just only hearing. I'm sure you guys like to hear from us more than just when we're upset about something. Let us know from time to time, when we scored a win, and so we know how to do that better and better.
One of the things you brought up about the Turnpike or Expressway, before you were in Miami, before Turnpike was built, US 1 was the tourist trap of Dade County. Mm-hmm. Going down south, it was the pet zoo at 106. Then we had a practice highlight. And then we had the largest lighted golf course. And we had a batting cage. Then we go to Coral Castle, we had Monkey Jungle.
Monkey Jungle. Yeah.
So every time you expand, somebody gets hurt a little bit, but we have to keep moving forward. Smart growth is where it is.
Smart growth.
Again, we have in your district, we got the Everglades. Are you going to look at the Everglades any different way? Did you grow up going to the Everglades? What's your feeling about it?
I'd be less than honest if I said I grew up on the Everglades. No, I didn't. Actually been educated on the Everglades when I became the mayor. And was taken out there and shown. And I've now taken much more of an interest about the Everglades. Not, always knew that it was important, but I wasn't an Everglades person. Let's put it that way. What I want to do is I want to make sure that the money that is coming to us for Everglades restoration, that we get that allocated, that we get the projects going, that we restore the flow back into the southern Everglades, okay, so that then we can have the flow flowing into Florida Bay, because the fresh water flowing into the bay is very important for the habitat, the fisheries that we have down there. And so that and the protection of the coral and our coral reefs is very important to me too. And again, all that flow is exceedingly important. There's a big project around West Palm Beach. There's a reservoir that they want to build that is also important, so that a lot of times now there's flow that goes into Lake Okeechobee, and it's going east-west, which it never did before, and it's causing problems. And then that flow just needs to keep going south, and then actually the water actually gets pretty well cleaned by the time it hits Florida Bay, just flowing through all the vegetation. And so we need to restore that. There's projects underway right now that are doing that. We need to make sure that we continue that funding and enhance it so that we can restore those flows and then get the southern Everglades back to, as pristine a condition as possible, and then restore the flows back into Florida Bay. And so, yeah, I've taken a much more bigger interest in what's going on with the Everglades. It's very important to our environment, our drinking water, and also keep that water away from the farmlands, et cetera, that we have in South Dade. And so there would be a problem as you restore that flow. Make sure that you flow it the right way and not into places that you don't really want it, because then you're going to have a flooding problem in some of those in the agriculture that we have in South Dade. And the agriculture in South Dade is exceedingly important to the economy of Miami-Dade County and to the livelihood of everybody who lives in South Dade. And so that's going to be very important for me too.
Oh, wait, just FYI, next weekend I'm going to the Everglades with Dr. Burris. So I'm a little nervous. He knows Dr.
Carter?
Burris. I'm a
With
little
Carter?
nervous because
With
he says he might
Carter?
throw me over for bait.
Yeah.
Next Saturday I'm going with him.
Yeah.
Hey, you can't come back empty-handed, Grant.
I don't know if you know, there's a gentleman by the name of, Alligator Ron. I don't know if you know him. Okay. And so he's the one that, a couple of years back, took me into the Everglades, and he's got a place in there and showed me the beauty of it, and actually took us out on a airboat ride. And while we were there, we actually saw a bear on the sawgrass, and he said he hadn't seen a bear there in about 2 years,
Wow.
2 or 3 years. And so, it looks like, we're getting the restoring the habitat, but unfortunately we also have the invasive species, the pythons, that we need to get rid of. I don't know how we're going to get rid of them, but that's also something I'm going to be looking to see how the federal government can start doing something about reducing that population, because it really is devastating the small mammals in the Everglades. And now it's becoming the lead predator, even probably ahead of the alligators. And we've got to do something about the python.
Yeah, it's not fun. Everyone knows I live in the Redland, and it's not fun when you come home, and a neighbor of ours did during the wintertime, and spread across his driveway, sunning himself, was like a 13-foot python. And, they're in the Redland as well. And sometimes these farmers, after they haven't plowed their land, and now they're going in and using it, and they plow it all up. And, many times they'll disc up several pythons and things of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So it's definitely we support that for sure. Let's get that back in balance. And even there's some other, species that are in our Everglades, in our canals,
Right.
that were introduced unnaturally, probably illegally, if we had to say that honestly. And that it is very important to get that under control. There's that balance.
Yeah, I think they found a python somewhere here in the Gables not too long ago, and so I think they're using the waterways.
Your neck of the woods.
Right.
Yes.
Using the waterways to travel. And so look, they're super dangerous. They're super dangerous to small children. They're super dangerous to small pets, your dogs, etc. And so, we've got to see how we can start weeding this out. Yeah. How we can weed them out. So they're invasive. They're not natural. There's probably a humane way to get rid of them. But we need to get rid of them. They're really destroying the ecosystem there in the Everglades.
They are. Good point.
We're about to wrap it up. I'm so used to calling you mayor, but Congressman, thank you very much for all you do for Dade County, not your district, but all of Dade County. And we're looking forward to many years of you doing that service. Kerry, you want to close this out? 2
years, not very long at all. I'm sure you know. I know you have a lot on your plate. Just let us know how we can be supportive and for our community at large, and work together and see a brighter future.
Well, look, you touched on it. It's communicating what's important to the people of South Dade and the Keys, and obviously that's also the bigger picture of what's important for America. All right, and so. Number one is what's important for America, and then, hey, what's important for the district. And I promise that, you'll see me, you will be seeing me in South Dade. They saw me yesterday in Key West. I was down there. I also went to the mosquito control of the Keys. They have this issue with GMO mosquitoes and Wolbachia mosquitoes. They're trying different ways to get rid of the mosquito problem. Because if you don't have mosquito control in the Keys, you can't live there.
No,
you can't live there. And
Everglades same way, and even the Redland. The Redland same way.
Exactly. You can't live there. And so, there's a variety of different issues, and some things that I know very well, some things that I'm going to be, educated on. But the thing about me is I like being educated. I like learning new things, and and I will be your voice in Washington, and I will continue to listen. And I have Frank here, Bowserby, who is my my right hand over in that area of my district, and he'll continue to be that. He was that as mayor. He'll continue to be that as me in Congress, and we hope to represent you, in a way that you feel proud.
Excellent.
Everybody, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Thank you.